Hi, everyone. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host and researcher, Louisa. Today is Friday, July 3rd, 2020. This is GoldFish Report number 516. And this is a Dragon Report update. It's our financial and geopolitical update with, of course, my co-host helping me here, Steve. How are you, Steve? Thanks for being with me.
Good morning, wherever it is. Good night.
And our guest, of course, our two guests, we have Benjamin Fulford with us from the White Dragon Society. Welcome back, Benjamin.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And of course, the Red Dragon Ambassador coming back. Good to be with you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Nice to be here too.
Yeah, there's so much going on. Benjamin, we did see your recent report this week. There's a lot of attacks going on. And of course, the biggest thing is what's really being done under the guise of this coronavirus global scamdemic, as everybody has labeled it. Do they really think we're this stupid that we don't see through what's going on?
You're seeing a couple of parallel agendas. I think we definitely do have, and I confirmed this today when I went to a bank to try to send money overseas. They really are. They're trying to get you to have a single number that for all your financial transactions worldwide, and they're really tightening up the controls. So there is an agenda where there is a faction that's saying you got to be vaccinated to get your digital wallet, and if you're vaccinated, you'll be filled with some kind of miniature semiconductors that are activated by 5G. That really isn't going on. I've heard that from the NSA, but then there's another faction that is using it as a cover to hunt down undesirable elites, shall we say, and blame it on COVID, whatever. And then I think there's even a third faction where they're using this patently fake event to expose the lies of the corporate media and the controlling factions. I think there's three different groups trying to use this to their advantage.
And how do you see the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell play into all of this?
Well, Ghislaine, or whatever it's pronounced. I was looking at an old, some article from the 1989. They have a ship called the Ghislaine, and they have all these elites partying on their boat, and it's all like, I'm sorry, but I think it's some kind of media event. I'm not following it too closely because it's just too scripted and too, it's, the whole thing smells like a psyop. So, but it might be by the good guys, but if they're, if it goes according to what it looks like, they're going to publicize her arrest everywhere, and then she's going to mysteriously die, and then everyone's going to say, hey, that's not right, something's fishy here, and maybe it'll help wake up some sheeple. We'll see how it plays.
Right. Well, at least it's putting the emphasis on the child trafficking and the procurement of children and so forth. Steve, did you want to follow up?
Sorry, one more thing I want to add. I had a few years ago, a 17-year-old approached me in a Starbucks I used to hang out at, and she was, sort of saying, she was available, and she wanted to have sex with me, and I told her to wait until she was 18, and she disappeared. But that was clearly a trap, okay? And if I had, taken the bait, I'm sure that they would be out doing a Prince Andrew on me right about now. And you gotta draw the line really between prepubescent and postpubescent, because in nature, if they have the ability to rear children, that's different from someone who still hasn't had puberty. And there are 13-year-olds who look like 18-year-olds who have been used to entrap people who otherwise aren't necessarily evil people. So it's there's a gray area there. We want to go after the real black part of that and try to, give some people a bit of slack in exchange for testimony if we're going to get the real bad actors here. Because in the case, for example, Prince Andrew is clearly, as far as we can see what's public, is he probably, I don't know, but he probably did, get tempted into doing something with a 17-year-old, and now they're trying to use that to gain leverage over control of the Navy, which is a different issue. Control of the Navy is a major geopolitical thing. having sex with a 17-year-old is a personal mistake, and the two shouldn't be mixed together.
All right, let's move along to the financial situation. Ambassador, you know that this week the Zimbabwe government has announced a gold-backed currency and the introduction of fintech, a new financial system, which we've all talked about extensively regarding the blockchain technology. Where do you see this? I know you expected this to come. Can you tell us a little bit more about what else we can expect in the future, or the near future, let's hope?
No, I believe, it's okay, proof is in the pudding, but I believe that the funds will be rolling out as we're speaking, okay? And, but at the same time, it's going to be interesting to see how it will be managed, okay? And so we're keeping a very close eye on it, and the remittance is on full swing, and we are doing our best to supervise that too. And also we have, a lady which has been arrested and kept in imprisonment by the Interpol for, a few months now, and being extorted by the cabal for money. And this money is the money that is paying for this RV, GCR, dinar, dong thing. You understand?
Okay.
So let's see what's up.
Can you name this lady, or you need to keep her name off?
Yeah, I can name it to you, but
Privately.
not publicly.
Privately, yeah.
Okay.
But you, originally, Ambassador, you wanted to talk today in specific. Was that your request? And if so, what is it you wanted to talk about? What can we do to move things forward?
No, I think that what is important now is that we're coming into a situation where we will be having actual liquidity to do certain things for establishing this NGOs that we need to do this think tank as you were talking about. And I think that we are now at that time. We're days away from that. And so I think it's important to put our heads together and try to find a solution how to work forward. And, I'm right now in one other country, but I will be traveling to another country today. Later after this program, I will immediately be traveling. And I hope to be in Asia very soon. And then I will meet up with you in person, and we'll sit down and make the papers and do the planning.
Well, Ambassador, I should let you know, I'm going to be in Canada from July 7th to August 14th. So hopefully,
I think realistically we will be in September in Asia, because they are not opening up Hong Kong until September, as I understood. And so I have two places I need to go. I need to go to Hong Kong. I need to go to South Korea, and then from South Korea I was planning to go to Japan to see you and to other family members over there and introduce you to them too.
Okay,
Steve, you're aware that I was given some instruments with, again, astronomical numbers on them that are real, but there's these instruments alone would be enough to completely fix the planet several times over, the obstacles seem to be still Switzerland and Tel Aviv and maybe Washington, D.C. at this point. But certainly the Vatican are okay with it. The British Commonwealth is okay with it. I think the Chinese are okay with it. And so we're getting close to where there's going to be some kind of agreement where we're going to have virtually unlimited funding responsibly used for the betterment of the planet and all its living creatures. We're almost there, I think.
We are.
Steve, do you have a question, Steve?
Yeah, well, Benjamin, the only thing, I mean, with instruments, I mean, everybody's talking about different instruments around the world as what's, stuff in the ground in Zimbabwe or whatever, old money. Isn't it just a matter of who's going to purchase the instrument? I mean, who's willing to back it up?
Well, it's really, at the end of the day, it's like a psychological thing where we all say, okay, this is the 0 point we'll start it from. and then everything works out from there. So it's like I don't know if you ever watched movies where there's a shift of power, like you have the king saying to his guardman, kill him, and the guardman says, wait a minute, maybe I'm not going to do that, and then the other people say, oh, and suddenly the king is no longer king, and someone else takes over. So it's sort of like this kind of sudden shift to the tide from one power group to another, or from one collective goal to another, and we're very close to that point, I think.
Where do you see the shift going after this when it happens now? Where do you see the shift going?
Well, I mean, I think there's already a kind of collective decision that we need to change the way we run this planet so that we're not wiping out life at the greatest rate since the dinosaurs were wiped out 65 million years ago. And I think that there's a shift where we don't want some secret people forcing us to fight each other. And I think, there's a belief that, certain groups born as trillionaires who think of us as sheep shouldn't be in charge. I mean, there's a lot of big decisions to be made, but the problem is there's still not a consensus. Okay, so what do we replace it with? So we know the system's rotten, but we're getting close. So you have the people around Trump saying, America's going to be independent. Every country's going to be independent. We'll each work on our own. Patriots gung-ho, but,
we don't want Cabal 2.0. That's the thing.
Yeah, but the thing is that, the United States is not an island. It's part of an entire planet, and we all share the same air and the same oceans. And those people don't have a vision for that. But so, so there's these different groups, each saying this is the agenda that to replace it with. And if we're not careful, we'll have a chaotic situation like happened after the French Revolution, where they all agreed that the king and Marie Antoinette had to go, but then they couldn't agree on what was next, and there was a lot of chaos and bloodshed. And then we're at that point where we have competing agendas for what to replace it with next. If we're not careful, they could lead to chaos and bloodshed. And you can see it. A few big fault lines. The obvious one is the China-U.S. split, but then you can see that the Europeans are, well, we don't want to follow America anymore the way it is, but that doesn't mean we want to become Chinese slaves either. So there's a push for a third way that's gaining momentum, I think.
Is there any evidence in your mind, and either you can answer as well, Ambassador, that the Chinese Communist Party is still in power, or there's any weakening of the Chinese Communist power?
Ambassador?
Yeah.
I believe that, to be honest with you, since Xi Jinping is family, and the Communist Party is not the Communist Party anymore. You understand?
In what sense do you mean?
No, it has that name, but it's not in essence that. It's a socialist capitalist system which they're doing. There's no communism in China.
Then why did they introduce a power that they can basically lock anybody up for life, even if it's a critic from another country overseas, if they suddenly were to come onto the territory?
Yeah, but that's a little bit like the same thing as United States kidnap people and take them to Guantanamo without evidence.
No, I understand. I'm not saying it's good or bad or something. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's unfortunately we have these authoritarian people running our countries who believes that that they want to find this type of solutions on mass scale arrests, and dissidents that are not wanted should be locked up in concentration camps. I'm not for that. I think that these Uyghurs and Wavas has to be released.
Yep.
Yeah, Benjamin. Sorry, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah. What there's a kind of a gray zone there too, where you have people like in the United States and in Hong Kong, toppling statues and burning subway stations and throwing firebombs at police who are crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed, okay? And in both the United States and in Hong Kong, I think it's quite legitimate if people, cross the line of violence, that there need to be, stopped with the necessary force. And you know, it was clear there are outside parties stoking, you know, the legitimate concerns of the people of Hong Kong. But I have heard in any case the Chinese are going to move a lot of this Hong Kong stuff to Macau and Shanghai anyway. And maybe you know, I live in Canada where the huge amount of people came from Hong Kong after 1997 when it reverted to Chinese rule. And I think you'll see another exodus to England, which would be good for England in the long run. And in the long run, it would be good for English-Chinese relations. But the point is, yeah, you don't want to have uncontrolled violence by paid agitators,
Right.
Dictating the agenda either in the U.S. or in Hong Kong.
Right. And you would think that, you know, and as Q has mentioned, I have to bring this up because, you know, the Q board has said that this has to play out. You can't really change the world without people thinking it's, you know, an uprising or it's a, you know, an insurgency, right? Actually, this is an insurgency in the United States, so a Marxist socialist insurgency. And so, but it has to play out because those who aren't awake yet, the sleepwalkers, you know, who really don't know how the world really works and how it's run, you know, those are the ones who think that the president makes all the decisions and, you know, the mainstream media is completely trustworthy. I'm so tired of waiting for these people to wake up. And this is why this has to happen. It has to be done legitimately. And so
it's disturbing to see what a high percentage of the population just puts on these uncomfortable, unnecessary masks, for example.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. Mass, literally. I mean, we can't go anywhere in the tri-state area, New York tri-state area, without having a mask on. You can't. I mean, go into a store. It's mandatory now, and people. And I think they're mostly liberals. They kind of take on this persona. They give themselves. They assume this power, you know, and they're just like a checkout person at the supermarket. Where's your mask? Put your mask on. You have to cover your face. I mean, it's crazy what's going on with people, but it is exposing them. And right now, you know, the president has tweeted on his Twitter page. He has, you know, dozens of pictures of these people who were destroying the statues and inciting all the violence. You think for a minute that we don't know who they are. And they're all being arrested. In fact, the Department of Justice has already released statements on how many people that they're arresting that have been doing this in this whole CHOP zone or Chaz zone over in Seattle. This whole thing was it goes to show we had to, you know, it had to play out this way so that America could see what their options are in November, because that's the alternative.
Well, and also, I mean, you're giving them enough rope to hang themselves with, but it's good that they went after the paymasters, the people who are offering people so many $100 a day and busing them in and saying, okay, you guys are on the Black Lives Matters team and you guys are on the white supremacist team, and okay, go to that plaza and start throwing rocks at each other type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And the innocent bystanders get sort of sucked into it all, you know?
Well, that's what's unfortunate is that there's a lot of people who are dying and being injured and all this. But, you know, Ambassador, can't the ones who are running the financial system, can't they just turn these accounts off of? I mean, look, we know it's all funded by George Soros and his Open Society Foundation and his other foundations. We see the Antifa credit cards. They pay these people with Antifa credit cards. It says it right on there. Yeah, so why can't we shut that down? We have the blockchain technology. Why is this so difficult? Or is it necessary to continue to let this play out longer?
And I have checked. Sorry, one more minute, please. And I've checked with SEC documents, and the so-called laboratory in Wuhan, China, that's the origin of this pandemic, is financed. It's owned by the Soros Foundation.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, Ambassador, go on. Right, I just had to.
Thanks for checking on that, Benjamin.
This is what I said from the beginning, that he was the one guilty for it. And but the thing is this way, that I believe that these things needs to be played out to expose the true people behind these schemes. You understand what I mean? I think that they're purposely allowing some things to go on so that they can find out who exactly is the people behind all these demonstrations and riots. You understand? Well, even though we know who it is, but you need evidence for it, you know.
Well, how much of this is being manipulated through the 5G and through the, we know that there's technology that can essentially mind control people using using frequencies, radio frequencies. I've reported on this, the documents on stopthecrime.net. It's a government document by Aquarius Group. I mean, they know your prime frequency. Anybody can be targeted. Even in a group, one person can be singled out and targeted. So how much of this is actually being incited by, you know, this technology that this, call it, you know, secret space program technology or black budget. Let's just call it black budget technology, yeah?
I have no clue.
Well, I can tell
Benjamin?
you this. Yeah, the forensic investigation to the attack on Fukushima did lead to a General Myers from the secret, who was the head of the secrets, or the U.S. Space Command, and that was the source of that was Neil Keenan, who was definitely head of CIA Asia or Europe at a certain point. So we know that that attack was that, and I think that the DARPA people need to be flushed out. They have people like Elon Musk now taking technology that was created with taxpayer money and using it to put themselves as these, you know, genius oligarchs, taking stuff invented by others, paid for taxpayer money. And you can see that when they jack up the stock price of these companies, you know, to absurd levels, that it's the high-tech companies that now control where the money that's being pumped out by the U.S. Fed in the U.S. is being sent to. You can see that with the unnatural stock price movements. So that's an area that we need to focus on at this point, because you know, a lot of the old style oil families and stuff like that have been dealt with. So now it's the FANG, eh? It's Google, it's Amazon, it's and they're not all the same. I think Amazon's not as evil as Google or Facebook, but you know, they all need to have they need to be nationalized and broken up, or at least regulated and forced to disclose. Because you know,
Right.
And that's one area for sure now that has to be dealt with.
Yeah. Well, the Department of Justice does have an antitrust uh, investigation going on right now, and I think that there will be changes. But you know, this coronavirus certainly has been a good cover for certain people disappearing, for sure. And you know, I guess that's why this has to play out. Is that right? Because if you really can track and follow people through their financial transactions, then you can this contact tracing, right? You can know exactly where they're going, exactly who they're talking to, exactly who they're meeting with, exactly where they're going, right?
I noticed. They slipped that into my iPhone here in Japan. I found it and I disabled it.
Oh.
I certainly didn't agree for that to be downloaded onto my phone.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to happen this autumn? I'd like to get into that subject with the ambassador.
No, I see a lot of things happening. You understand? We should have a private talk, Benjamin. I can give you a call if you're free tomorrow.
Sure, let's do that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that we need to let things fester a bit longer. That's why I'm taking a rather long summer holiday and let this all, you know, play itself out a bit, and then hopefully we can fix it all in the autumn. But do you agree with that?
I agree with that like that. Yeah, I think September is a good time.
I think things do tend to slow down in the summertime, exactly what you're saying there, Benjamin. But it does look like, you know, finding these people and tracking them will also be just as easy to cut them off once, you know, their purpose is filled. And you know, these people are the low-hanging fruit. So once you remove them and put them in prison, you go and you follow their contact tracing to who, you know, their managers are, and then their managers, you really can start eliminating the whole bunch of them. Because when the globalists don't have the minions doing their work for them anymore, then, you know, they either have to do it themselves or their agenda has to, you know, stop in its tracks. So is that part of this? Would you agree with that?
I think that it might be an interesting exercise to temporarily turn off all the wireless stuff. And only have landlines and physically delivered letters and face-to-face conversations, just to kind of flush out the system a bit, just for a week or two. blame it on the EMP or something, but I think that would be a great exercise. I'm pushing for that, although some people are saying, no, what about emergency services or whatever, but I'm sure those those concerns can be dealt with and do this. But I personally recommend such a thing.
Yeah.
And me, you know, I can go completely off the grid. I mean, I've lived in the forest eating stuff I grab with my own hands. And I can go completely off without any of this stuff, you know. I don't need a credit card. I don't need, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's true for a lot of us.
Let me ask Steve if you have questions for Benjamin, Steve.
Well, not
or
to,
the ambassador.
Well, either person. I mean, I believe we're on the cusp, from everything I'm hearing, we're on the cusp of a great change. And my question is, how close are we to having this future planning agency? I mean, I've got my own plan and my own ideas, and a short list, a medium-term list, and a long-term list. But you, Benjamin, you ambassador, how have you got the people together? Have you got a plan written up? How does it look?
Okay, there's a zillion plans, many of them good. What's lacking is the funding at this point still.
Well, if that comes, say that hypothetically comes in autumn.
Well, okay, let me see what I'm thinking. I think there's two parallel approaches. One is that you go to existing pundits and experts, people who now have a successful track
You headhunt the best people in their area.
Agency, like people who helped Singapore become modern, successful entrepreneurs. But you can also, at the same time, try some kind of, offer like a $100 billion prize for some kind of internet, a Eurovision world improvement type contest, and try that in parallel. I think you have to use the scientific method, try many approaches, and then find the ones that work.
Right.
But it's not going to be a simple centralized approach.
But having said that, a topic that you report on often as well, and this is addressed to the ambassador, is that it just seems that these countries, it seems very benevolent, this Belt and Road Initiative, but it also, there's a lot of reports about this really kind of being an imperialistic ambition of kind of in disguise of China, because it really saddles these companies with these. It's great to have this infrastructure and modernization, but doesn't it saddle them with interest debt that they could never repay? Or how is that going to be reconciled, Ambassador?
No, the problem is, as always, is that you have a game plan, okay, and you have a contract, and you have a deal in front of yourself. You understand? And as a matured human being with responsibilities, you should investigate that before you sign it. And if you cannot follow what you promised, then you shouldn't do it. Do you understand what I mean? All these situations here that the harbors that has been confiscated or whatever they might be, it's not the Chinese that forced them to mismanage their harbors, was it? You understand what I mean? And yes, I think China is going to be, the new power broker in the future.
Benjamin, did you want to comment on that?
Well, okay, first of all, this is someone with Polish ancestry. I don't want people to be offended, but I'm going to say a Polish joke, okay? The Polish government decided that they wanted to encourage chicken farmers. So they gave people chickens, right? And this one man came, he got his chickens, and a week later he says, all my chickens died. Please give me some more chickens. They said, well, if all your chickens died, why should we give you more chickens? And he said, oh, I know the mistake I made. I planted them too close together, okay? So the point being that this is what the Chinese are doing. They're going out and they're trying to get these people, and some of them just don't, they waste all the money, and they're not, as far as I know, they write it off, but at a certain point, they're not going to give them new loans either, because they're throwing good money after bad. And there are some, like the port in Sri Lanka is a famous example. There's a few others, but if you look, they're instead of saying, okay, you're going to have to sell your whole country to us and we're going to impose a president, they're just writing off the loans and they're not giving new ones to people who don't know who wasted the money. That's what, as far as I can tell. And certainly, I'd rather borrow from the Chinese than from the IMF.
Yeah,
although Ideally, I'd rather borrow from nobody, you know?
Well, Ambassador, isn't this monetizing the people of the country ultimately? Because you're really
No,
getting the
not
people, you're monetizing the labor of the future labor of the people to actually be the ones to pay for it, so that
no.
China in
That
the end actually doesn't pay for anything. Is that what's
no,
happening?
that's the Vatican's approach. You understand? Now, in the country, we're all responsible for debts. Either way, we're all paying taxes. You understand what I mean? And if a government make a project and they have to pay it back, then they would use the people of a country to pay it back. You understand what I mean? This is the slavery system that we're living in.
Exactly, it's the slavery system, and it doesn't look like that's going to change then, does it?
But Louisa, let me talk about one example I studied. You know, the people of the Congo, right? They went to Europe and they went to the United States and they said, we've got these huge copper resources and we'll let you develop the copper resources if you build us a system of roads and, and hospitals. And they said, no, buzz off. And they went to the Chinese and they said, sure. And they put an area the size of Western Europe. They filled it with railroads and hospitals and roads and highways. And they got the copper. And people sort of turned around saying, hey, look, they're exploiting Congo. They're taking all their copper, It's not that simple. It's not black and white. People need to understand that. But we do need reporters on the ground reporting facts and truths so that we can come up with accurate decisions and opinions, which right now there's just not enough of. There are too many editorialists, not enough reporters out there.
True. And that's what the change is supposed to be taking place in the U.S. here regarding the social media platforms, because they're not platforms anymore. They are editors. If they are enforcing and editing, if they are I would say, editing, they're acting as editors, right? Because they're removing and they're changing content. Yeah,
they're not editors, they're censors.
Well, the classification will change because it is a public forum, and so anytime there's a public forum, then everyone's free speech, First Amendment should be protected, at least in the United States. But my argument is that we really, it's all a lie anyway. We don't have any rights because you walk into a courtroom and you realize that docket anyway is being monetized at the Treasury, and everything's being monetized. It's all about the cattle, and it's all about getting the cattle to pay for everything that the globalists want. And people just do it aimlessly because they are unaware, ignorant of how they're being manipulated and how they're being commoditized and monetized.
No, there was something called the Magna Carta, which is like the first big European human rights thing. And the basic point was that the king could not arbitrarily arrest people for no good reason. And if people committed a crime, it was going to be a jury of their peers who decided whether or not they were innocent and what they should be punished with. What happened was, with this so-called 911 and this Nazi Patriot Act, they said, well, terrorists don't have human rights. The problem is they didn't define a terrorist. So you criticize George Bush, or you're a terrorist, off you go for waterboarding, and they wiped out the Magna Carta. And that's that. We do have a system that works in many. It's our ancestors weren't idiots. Everything that happened today is an evolution from the past, and it's the experience of our ancestors. You can't just dump it all. But clearly,
we need to restore it. That's right.
Yeah, since 2001, since the Patriot Act, the United States has gone down a fascist Nazi route, and that course needs to be reversed.
Right, and that's the insurgency in the U.S. that has been hijacked through the Democrat Party. It's, but everybody says they're two wings of the same bird, so what difference does it make? But truly, it does appear that at least we're getting fair and reciprocal trade deals. That was important because NAFTA is dead. Thank God we have the USMCA, so we have better trade deals. NAFTA's out of the picture. It's dead now. So we have deals and trade that are going to be bringing. Of course, the president announced that he's bringing back. We're generating billions of dollars in tariffs, so that's generating income for the United States.
I'm sure we also don't even know what deals have been done behind closed doors. We don't know everything.
Well, I'm just talking about what the press secretary publishes, because that's what I cover exclusively.
Right.
And so if we have income coming in and we don't sell out, we keep our manufacturing in the United States, keep the jobs here. Under NAFTA, all the jobs went overseas and really killed our economy, and also the ability for people to keep jobs here. But of course, the H-1 visa also has been there's been changes because of the COVID and trying to keep the jobs here within the United States as well. So there have been the president just issued this week a renewal of the restriction of at least temporary for the H-1 visas, because we need to keep people who are qualified to work here so we can really rebuild the country. Because I saw in your article, Benjamin, that you said, yeah, the U.S. military needs to be the policeman for the world and really keep it, but, we have to invest here because we were dying, and people didn't really see it.
The two aren't contradictory. If you have the world paying the U.S. military lucrative amounts of money, a lot of that's going to be spent inside the United States, rebuilding that place. But you do need some kind of, you need to study the systems used by Singapore, China, and Japan until the mid-1980s, where you come up with some sort of overall plan for your future, and then you let the private sector make that happen. You don't have any real planning right now. And that's something you need to study other systems and take the best practices and apply them to the U.S. But I'm telling you, protectionism is going to impoverish you in the long run. I keep bringing up the example of Argentina, which after World War II was the second richest country on earth, and then they degenerated to third world over the coming decades because they were protectionists. They insisted that they make everything in Argentina, cars, everything, and then they ended up with shoddy products and high prices and dropping living standards. And that's the route you're taking now with your protectionism.
Right. Well, not exactly, because no. Listen to how Trump crafts these deals. At least a certain percent of the automobiles need to be manufactured within the United States, not the entire car, but at least 60% of it must be, something to that effect. And that's exactly what he's passed. So that's how he's worked the deal, because we can't get everything from the United States, and we can't turn the ship around that quickly. Ambassador, let me ask you to weigh in on this, because, this is, again, an economic issue. And, unless you want the United States to degenerate into third world, we needed to really fortify this country.
I believe a H-1 visa restriction is probably the biggest threat to American prosperity that you guys have. You understand? If that's the secret weapon of the United States is the H-1 visa.
Right.
You get the most intelligent people from all around the world coming into America to study at the universities and later on start working for American corporations. Mm-hmm. Now, when you're not having that anymore, then we're just going to have a bunch of goldfishes swimming around in the aquarium and, not being very constructive.
Yeah.
Well,
it's difficult when there's a lot of people in the United States who can't afford college, and then when they get federal sponsored loans that they can't repay, the interest is astronomical. It compounds. It's just, you spend the rest of your life paying that off.
Well, why don't you do like Canada used to do, where you just have the government pay for college, and only people smart enough to pass the exams go in the first place, and then they come out with no debt whatsoever. That's what you can do if you nationalize the Federal Reserve Board.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm for a proposal like that, and I think that a lot of people would be as well. There has to be some sort of egalitarianism when it comes to giving Americans a fair shot at these jobs, when clearly our Common Core system has clearly had a successful impact on our kids today. You can see that by the rioters in the street who are tearing down statues of history that are that represented a pro emancipation movement, and they're complaining about racism. So they're real idiots, and they really didn't learn any history. So you could see why they would go and use this H-1 program, but it's not fair. If we need to, fortify the United States, because as Steve has said, what happens here in the United States is going to trickle around the world. If the United States falls, where we go one, we go all. I'm sorry.
The problem that we have here is that the H-1 visa that you guys have brings in intelligent people, students from all around the world into America and learn skills and share skills and later on works in American companies. And they're contributing to the United States. Okay.
You know,
In
60%
the European case here, we bring in retards, handicapped people, people who is war traumatized. We are bringing in all the people that basically are not even going to be able to work in future. You know, they're going to need, psychological help for the rest of their lives. Inbreeds, all type of different type of problems.
Oh, you're talking about through the migration. Yeah.
Yeah, through the migration situation here. And if you want to take an H1 person in, or an intelligent individual into Europe, it's not possible because they're prioritizing the migrants.
Okay.
So at least the United States has a better custom in having this H1 visa system than Europe has, for example.
Well, the migration problem is different. The immigration problem. Go ahead, Benjamin.
Okay, the most successful people, 60% of the executives in Silicon Valley, which is the most successful part of the U.S. economy right now, are from either India or China. And they're not, you couldn't have Silicon Valley with just American trained engineers at this point. Now, Canada, you should look at what Canada's done because they have 86% support for immigration. The reason is they only bring in people they need and who aren't going to steal jobs from Canadians. So, for example, if you're coming from Japan, you're going to get a visa if you're a sushi chef or a gardener because we don't have enough of those. But if you're a nuclear physicist, well, there's too many overeducated Canadians anyway, so no, you're not going to get in. But that way they enhance the economy. They don't take jobs from Canadians. Now, the Americans have the border with Mexico, which we don't, so that brings in all sorts of riffraff. I'm not denigrating Mexican people. What I'm saying is that a criminal class is deliberately sent in. And that's something that you have a legitimate right to deal with.
Well, President Trump has absolutely confirmed that. And that's why one of the reasons he's building the wall, because he needs to stop that from coming in. And he said in terms of immigration as well. And so he's confirming what you said, Benjamin.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, listen, I've gotta go. But Ambassador, if you call me tomorrow, we can talk. If there's any last thing, but I think we're gonna have a long, hot summer. There's gonna be a lot of disruption still. I recommend to people lay back, chill out, relax a bit, try to get some rest and energize yourself. Don't get too stressed out by the news and prepare for a productive autumn.
That's good advice. Good news, Benjamin.
Have a great holiday.
Yeah, have a good holiday. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe, and we'll see you when you get back.
Yeah, and Ambassador, we can talk later. All right, bye then.
No, we don't.
Thanks for joining us, Benjamin.
Yeah.
We'll continue with the ambassador, though, for a little while. Steve, did you have any questions for the ambassador?
Yeah, I wanted to grab Benjamin before he left, but there's no time. But I can ask the ambassador about the belt and road.
Oh, wait, Benjamin, he's still there. Did you want to ask him something, Steve?
Yeah. Just before you leave, where do you think the Belt and Road Initiative is right now, or what the purpose is from the Chinese perspective? What's your opinion?
Their idea was to carry out a Marshall Plan, but 100 times bigger, and it had the support of the Committee of 300 as long as it was for infrastructure. And I think that they criticize it because it was so successful that it had the effect of making China too powerful. And I've been saying the West needs to do their own Belt and Road just as big and much better in order to prevent this from becoming a one China world.
I understand. On the face of it, that it looks correct. That sounds very benevolent. But some critics might say it's another IMF debt trap. What do you say to that?
Well, they just wrote off the debt for 77 countries. You got to check the facts. What happens when they can't pay their debt? What do?
So they write it off.
They write it off.
IMF never did that.
But maybe they don't lend them more after that because obviously they wasted the money they borrowed in the first place.
Right. Okay.
All right. Well, bye for now then.
Okay. Bye-bye, Benjamin. Enjoy your holiday. So, Ambassador, can you comment on that? I mean, you know a lot about this Belt and Road Initiative, obviously. So can you give us a little bit more insight? I mean, do you see any potential? The point Benjamin made was very good, that Steve actually brought up was, certainly the West should have their own Belt and Road so that China doesn't become the emperor of the world.
Only problem with that is that, you know, Europe is broke, number one. And number two is that when we do something, we don't write off debts. And we don't, you know, we put all these high loans and things like that. I mean, if you look at a country like Norway, that is supposed to be one of the richest countries in the world, they cannot even manage their own roads. You understand what I mean? So it's so you know we need to shape up, all of us, and wake up and look to China and see what we can do to better ourselves.
Well, it's the leadership that's failing. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
the people don't even get a say in the matter. That's what I think is lacking in this, because they're going to be monetized. Their future earnings are going to be monetized in order to pay for this. It's going to be commoditized and traded. So, or at the very least, it'll be used to, you know, to monetize and liquidate these trusts, these global trusts, right?
Exactly.
Who's behind the Belt and Road Initiative? Is it the family or is it the Communist Party?
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
It's the family.
Yes.
So we're talking to the Red Dragon ambassador. It's the family behind the Red Dragon Red Dragon family who is supporting the Belt and Road Initiative. So we just want the facts to be, you know, straight. We want the facts on the table because, you know, as you know, the ambassador said, this is, you know, still a slavery system, a debt slavery system. But when you know, I thought we were going to transition out of that. I thought 555 was about, but that's not what it's about.
It is, but you have to take baby steps.
True, you can't turn things around overnight. That's for sure. That's for sure. But the leadership is absolutely failed. Now, the reason why Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest is important is because it was the operation with Jeffrey Epstein that blackmailed all the world leaders in pedophile and pedophilia and even perhaps cannibalism. And you know, I don't have firsthand knowledge on that, but this is what this is what the reports are that are surfacing, and so clearly the global leadership has been blackmailed and has perhaps acted in a way that wasn't in humanity's best interest. How can we change that, or you know, do you not see that as a problem?
No, I think we are changing it. I think that people are waking up, even though they're waking up in the wrong way in many places. But I mean, people are now on the streets. People are now, you know, trying to do whatever they can do. You understand what I mean? In the old days, just going back a little while, you know, people were just sitting on the sofas and screaming and shouting and crying and doing nothing. You understand what I mean? Now at least people have been, you know, start waking up everywhere. And also the police start waking up in different places too. Like you saw in Paris, you know, the police were putting down their weapons and their handcuffs over demonstrators. You understand what I mean?
Right.
They don't want to hurt their own people.
Well, as long as they're demonstrators and not these anarchist provocateurs that we're having in the United States, which has turned very violent. I don't know, what does it look like? The both of you are in Europe. What does it look like from where you're sitting in terms of, and I should have asked Benjamin this question, when you're looking at the scenes of Seattle and you're looking at the scenes of what's happening in Philadelphia and what's happened in some areas of New York. Do they think that we've completely lost it here and that there's absolutely no leadership? Because these are happening in Democrat-run states. And that's the problem, is that
well, I don't think it's that
understand.
much different in some areas here in Europe either. You're just not hearing about it. I mean, you talk about Sweden. I mean, you talk about there are areas in Sweden that the police can't even get into because it's too dangerous. Isn't that correct, Ambassador?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit over-exaggerated, but yes, they have areas where you know, where the police has a major problem, and that is a migration area. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, again, is the government failing to do their job? You understand? And it's a weak government, and it's a weak police.
Exactly.
And they have no game plan. But you know, it's not that, you know, the demonstrations in America is a little bit more different, because the people rioting in Sweden is rioting because they've not anything better to do. You understand? People in America, at least, they had some trigger point that releases this type of anger that they have. You understand? But it's also the same nationalities. I mean, you have the Somalis that, you know, and different type of Arabs and things like this that creates a lot of problems over here in Europe. You understand? And you're not a racist for telling the truth. You just have to be honest and say what it is.
Yeah, well, that's their, that's their excuse. If you, like even with Israel, if you criticize Israel, then you're anti-Semitic. You can't just disagree with their policy because it's, and so there's this YouTuber out called Young Pharaoh, and he's actually quite good. And he's last night had a live stream out about saying how China has been, taking over the world, and we've been doing it through Israel, so that nobody sees that China's doing it. Is that what's happening?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think this is over exaggerations as always.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what about Israel? I mean, how come it's so quiet? Nobody ever bothers them anymore. ISIS never attacks there, coincidentally.
No,
I don't see
they're
any
working for
Somalis there. They don't
themselves.
have any, they didn't take any migrants, right? How come they seem to be exempt from everything? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, because they're the ones ruling the system. And so, you know, and that's why we have them in America and in Europe instead.
And how are they ruling the system? Just to be clear on that.
No, they brainwashed these Christian fundamentalists in America that to bless Israel and the Jewish people, and automatically they will be blessed. You understand? And so that they believe in that system, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why Trump, he has all these characters around him that is pushing him and pushing him and pushing him and pushing him.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to do everything that he has to for the sake of Israel.
So it says here, Democrats have been selling out America to China through Israel. That was his headline. And he went into, to explain that. So, so anyway, I'm just curious what your opinion was on that. And Steve, did you have?
I need to study it to give a proper announcement on it.
Okay, Steve, did you have any other questions for the ambassador, or do you want to wrap it up?
Well, the thing we can wrap it up. I mean, I'm just saying there is unrest in Europe. It's just not being reported. I am seeing things on social media, demonstrations in Germany. It's all suppressed. France, Spain, Italy. It is being suppressed. The information. So,
and even the social media where we would normally see it, you're seeing immediately it gets taken down if people do upload videos.
That's right.
It is getting taken down. I mean, let's see, it was what, 54 weeks, 55 weeks, and then it went, of protest every weekend of Yellow Vest. What happened to the Yellow Vest protests? Well, coronavirus happened. Notice how this coronavirus scamdemic has, been used for a lot of agendas, as Benjamin was talking about. There's different factions who, have used it, utilized this pandemic for their own agenda.
Some people get it, but not enough.
Right.
I'm very disappointed. Yeah.
So if the leadership is blackmailed and sold out, they're really never going to represent the people. The people just have to know that that's the case, and they have to, I don't know what we're going to do. We just need something more egalitarian, because I think that it's all. We'll see what happens with this Maxwell arrest. We'll see what is revealed and what comes out.
I think Benjamin's probably right. I think it's just a distraction, because I mean, look at the Nexivim thing, the Rainier thing. What happened to that? That wasn't. He was convicted in the end, but it was hardly reported in the media. It wasn't made. It wasn't brought to the fore. So I mean, it wasn't in their interest at the time to bring that forward. So now suddenly we have this. Is she going to disappear? Is she cutting a deal? Was the deal cut ages ago? I mean, they were protecting obviously the royal family in England. I understand that. They don't want to cause a big snafu. But I mean, it's we're being led by the nose through the media. Simple as that.
Ambassador, what's going on with the Queen? What's going on with the monarchy there? It looks like there's a lot of changes that I don't think we're getting the truth of what's really happening.
I don't think so either, and I think that it's right now under a lot of changes. You understand? So it's bad for me to make any statements on it, but you know, we will see in the next coming 2 or 3 months what's going to be the case.
I mean, there's reports that Buckingham Palace has been boarded up. Is this? Can you confirm that?
No, I think that's over exaggerations.
Okay.
And there's talk of this other guy. Yeah, go on.
Oh, they're talking about this guy that's supposably the real king of England. Yeah.
What do you know about that?
What do you know about that?
No, I have heard about it, but it's not going to happen. You know.
Okay.
It's a good try, but it's not going to happen. She's too much loved, you know. She's such a cuddly person, you know.
I never saw her like that, but it's interesting that you say that.
Yeah.
a small teddy bear, an English teddy bear. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm not touching that one.
I have one question. Look, Ambassador, are you aware? Obviously, the family has an agenda, and from what I understand from everything you said, they believe in maintaining or restoring the ecology, and also to giving rights to people that have been taken away by the cabal. Is the Trump team working closely with the family?
I believe so. Yes.
Oh, you don't have any direct knowledge?
Yes, I have direct knowledge, and I believe so.
Okay.
And I hope that he will continue to do it and not get carried away.
Okay.
Well, in all fairness, this president has had so many assassination attempts against him. There will probably be more. And let's hope they don't succeed. But I mean, he has been under, no president has had to deal with the kinds of things that he's had to deal with in this public of a way. And who knows what's even happening privately that we don't know about. So, you know, this man is really a very strong man, and he's able to withstand this. It's almost as if this feeds his strength in a certain way, because he doesn't he never flinches. I mean, he's Teflon Don. It's like it rolls right off of him, and he really does seem extremely, I mean, aside from the fact that he has the acumen to handle the challenges that he's dealing with, like you said, we hope that he makes the right choices and has the right influence. We've seen him flush out so many traitors out of the government, embedded within his own administration, but they were left over. They were career bureaucrats. Even people he appointed, he had a reason for, because of course I think he's truly a Sun Tzu master. Because he really does keep his friends close and his enemies much closer.
That's right.
And he follows them to find who they're, what they're it appears to me that what he's doing is he keeps them that way so that he can follow where it's going. But Bolton came out with this book basically exposing, well, it's his opinion. It's not even based on fact, so his opinion can be skewed.
No, but this man is a war criminal and an idiot.
Yes.
I don't know how anyone takes this man serious. Him and that guy, what is his name? Brandon, what's his name?
Brennan.
Brennan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Steve,
so just a question. What role does the country of Zimbabwe and the wealth in the ground in Zimbabwe play in the new financial system?
It's all from the Anunnaki. And so going back to that time, supposedly they mined gold there, and it's supposed to have a lot of in-ground assets.
Oh, so is that why they've been trying to exterminate the population of Africa? Oh my God!
No, but the question is, what role does it play in the new financial system?
It's not going to play so much role because it has assets but doesn't have any money. So, let's see how it would be managed.
Yeah, because according to a report, Zimbabwe has 13 million tons of reserves, gold reserves in the ground, and
proven gold reserves.
They've only exploited 580 tons of that. So apparently, yeah. Who is this? Can you tell us who this Apollo group is? This Apollo group, this Apollo FinTech. Can you explain that to us?
Never heard about.
Never heard of it. Okay, they. I think I sent you the link. African Allied Nations, United Allied States.
Is this a new thing because they had the African Union?
Yeah. Let me screen share this because this was an announcement that was out on the internet. This is Direct Apollo Partnership and Use Cases, and so that's what DAPU cases, I guess. I don't know what you pronounce there, but Zimbabwe CBZ signs MAO with Apollo FinTech to implement three-nation solution. It says here the discussion of financial technology known as FinTech is on the rise in government administrations around the world. While many are still pondering the possibilities of trials and implementation, Zimbabwe is taking up the mantle and run with the technology. Zimbabwe is now the first country to sign an agreement with Apollo FinTech to host a gold standard currency on its blockchain. Based on financial history, beginning around 600 BC in Lydia, gold was the best acceptable and precious mineral people preferred to use for trading. For some 40 years later, gold, let's see. Okay, well, that's just a little bit of history here.
Basically, what this is it's a gold-backed crypto stable coin that's going to be used potentially as an exchange system between countries, basically replacing fiat currencies.
I don't know about it. Is it crypto? It says here the Zimbabwe government is determined to stabilize its economy, eradicate poverty, attract foreign investors, and elevate their global economic standards. They are therefore turning to financial technology, which has proven to provide the necessary solutions they seek. Zimbabwe will be the first nation to use a gold standard currency on a blockchain, Apollo FinTech blockchain.
Yep.
So what about this whole gold back? When is the world's currencies all going to be gold backed? I thought we were having, when is the GCR, when are we going to have the new fixed rates? Because they should be fixed, right? The gold standard is going to create a fixed rate for all currencies. Is that correct?
The GCR has already taken place.
Yeah.
And some currencies rolling out later. You understand?
Right.
And most currencies already are backed by something. And so I think that you should pay attention for the next coming days.
That's okay.
Okay.
But am I correct though? Right, but I just want to be clear on the idea of the currencies, because the manipulation of currencies is what causes the trade wars. So, will this help to stabilize the currencies globally?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will have to run now to this other country, and I want to thank everyone on the program, and I hope to see you guys soon again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. Good to be with you again. Steve, thanks again for being here, Steve. Okay, thanks so much for everyone for watching, and this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.